Hey y'all, so in this video today, I'm going to go over how to create a unique offer, an irresistible offer, instead of creating a commodity offer like most trainers do. And I'll explain to you exactly what I mean. So this all started this past week. As you guys probably know, we are always figuring out like the next step of what we want to teach you and just trying to make everything as high quality as possible for you. So one thing that happens, you guys know this, but in the training space, in the training world, especially on the business side of things, is it tends to get really stale, right? So trainers are often taught the same things for years over and over again without any updates, without any new information, and they're just told like, try harder, do these methods, they work. So one promise that we have here at Dog Pro U is we are always learning, we are always growing, we are always figuring out the next steps inside, not just the training space, but like the business marketing side in general. Like that's what we're passionate about, that we're taking that information, whatever makes sense and applies, and then we are testing that out inside the dog training space. And once it's tested, it works, we are implementing that into training businesses. So anyway, long story short, I did about 5 different calls, sales calls with different companies last week that offer different types of marketing systems, coaching, different things. They were all in like general business, not in the dog training space. And what I was trying to do is optimize Instagram marketing. So we teach you guys how to do Instagram marketing, and I just want to make sure that we're always up to date with it. So I got on these calls. Actually, one of them was LinkedIn, a few of them were Instagram. But anyway, I talked to a lot of different salespeople, so I got to go through the process of seeing their marketing, talking to them, signing up with a call, having a conversation, and I really got some things out of those conversations that I think super apply to your business. And I want to go over that with you and what offers generally look like inside a training business and the changes that you can make to make it so much better. So when we're talking about a commodity offer, it means that it's just kind of the same as the person next to you. So if you go into the grocery store and you're going to buy milk, there's like a few different options and they're all kind of the same price, and you might have like one thing that you prefer over the other. But in general, it's like, okay, let's pick the lowest price option, and then maybe you want organic or maybe you want 2%. So there's like a few choices to make, but overall, if you're just buying basic milk, then the decision is based on the price. So when you have a commodity offer inside dog training, it's the same thing. People are going to look at what you have to offer and look at what the person next to you has to offer, and they're going to compare that like apple to apple, milk to milk, and they're going to make that decision based on the price. Unless you create an irresistible offer where you're taking price out of the equation. Now, of course, there are other things that are part of that, like the reviews that you have. If you're getting a referral, if you have a lot of social proof on your social media, there are definitely things that can help. Just like that brand of milk, if you know that brand of milk and you trust it and it was the milk that you drank when you were a kid, you might be more likely to buy it. But overall, those things aren't going to completely set you apart. And here are the main things that came up on the calls that I did. Keep in mind that I was fully prepared to sign up for something if there was something that was going to benefit you guys, that I could learn, that I could test, that I could apply, and that I could potentially teach you guys. And I did not sign up for anything. And so the first thing that I want to go over is the same offer as everybody else, which is like the milk situation. So if you feel like I just need to get a bunch of leads in the door, and once I get a bunch of leads in the door, I'm just going to give them my basic offer. So I actually just did an audit on an account, and it was a dog trainer account, and they were messaging back and forth with potential clients. And everybody that messaged in, they would just say, okay, do you want private training or group training? That was the first message that went out. And this is way more common than maybe you would think. And so right there, that person who was potentially interested in getting their dog trained, the only decision that they had to make was, do I want group training and private training? just like everybody else, just like all the websites you can go to, just like Petco, where the pets go, just like PetSmart, right? Like by answering with that, by that being the first decision, all you're doing is having somebody immediately, they're the authority, they have to make a decision, and all they're going to do is compare you to everybody else around you. So you're creating that energy of commodity offer. So if you feel like, I just don't have good quality leads, or like nobody has any money right now and they can't afford training, but that's the offer that you're giving them, well, that's why, okay? It's because it's a commodity offer. It's the only action they have to take is to compare you to the person next door. Doesn't mean they're cheap. Doesn't mean they're a price shopper. That's just the only action that they have to take. And the other thing that we see is an extreme offer. So sometimes I talk to trainers and they're like, oh, I just feel like, I really need to go take the dog for a year and just really train it so it's like so perfect. And I think if I take the dog for a year, somebody will pay me, 10 grand to take that dog. Okay, well, most people don't want to leave their dog with you for a year. They actually maybe if it's like a service dog situation, but for the most part, they got a dog because they wanted a dog. It's not the most convenient for their dog to leave for a year. Same thing with like, okay, well, I'm going to show up at my client's house 3 days a week, like, 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to show them exactly how to like get up, walk their dog. That's not convenient at all. So to you might be thinking, oh, well, I'm offering all this value because I'm giving my time, and like that's a big deal, but that's not convenient to them at all. So it builds no value whatsoever. So the reason why this popped in my head when I was on those calls is because I saw both of these things. I saw both sides. Some offers was just the same as the last one with a different price tag, right? It's like they thought they had this like magical offer that they were like, it's so exciting, you get these perks and you get these systems. It was just the same as like the person next door. Not only that, it was the same as like what you can get on YouTube. There was no difference whatsoever. And then the other side of it was they had these like extreme offers where they're like, we're going to go in and build out your full system from this point to this point and all this extra stuff, and you're going to have this VA, and like, I don't need that. I'm just looking for a system, like a solution for the problem, right? I'm just looking for a solution, just trying to figure out if there's anything out there that I can learn. So I saw a lot of the same offer and extreme offers. The next thing that super applies to dog trainers are perks that are not relatable, they're not useful, or they're not interesting to your potential client. So as a trainer, sometimes it's easy to disconnect from what your potential clients actually need. And this is kind of the example of like taking the dog for a year, but sometimes this just includes like the perks that they get, right? Like, you might think it's really cool if they get like a certain collar or a certain leash or a certain crate when they start working with you, but if they don't know the value of that tool that they're getting, it doesn't really matter. It's not really a perk. They're not going to say like, oh my gosh, I'm paying, $2,500 for this package, but I get a $300 collar if they don't see the benefit of that collar. So if you're offering perks that don't make sense, like even like, and you get a pack walk once a week, well, maybe that doesn't really fit into their lifestyle. Maybe they don't want to do that. So if you're offering perks that don't relate to your potential client, then they don't add value to what you're offering. And one thing that is very helpful in thinking of perks, and it's funny that I use the pack walk example because for some people that's an awesome perk, right? And like for a collar, if they understand the value, that's great. But trainers tend to think about what good perks would be for them, but you have to think about what good perks would be for your clients. So the best way to do this is to make a list. So make a list of the problems that your clients have before they start working with you. And that doesn't mean that their dog, like it doesn't have to be extreme, huge problems. It can be little problems, like they literally can't leave their house if their dog is there, right? Or like, they don't have time to like drive to training, or like just the smallest things that are keeping them away from the solution that they need. And when you build your perks, build it around that. Think about your client, think about what issues come up in their head and build the solution around that. Okay. So a really good example of this is I talked to a trainer who lived out in the middle of nowhere, which I can totally relate to because we live out in the middle of nowhere. And they're like, I just feel like I can never grow my business because people don't want to drive in. to train with me, no matter what, like whether it's a one-on-one or a board and train or whatever that is just really hard for me to get people to commit to coming. And like once they come, they're good, they'll come back, but it's like that initial relationship, they just don't want to make that commitment. So all they did was offer to meet the person in, like, do it in home for the first session. And that was like the perk, is like, I'm going to come to you, we're going to see where your dog lives, we're going to, see what it's all about first. And then they just did their normal training at their facility, which was in the middle of nowhere, and people showed up and it was totally fine and the retention rate was fine. But it was just that initial meeting perk that mattered. And before, they were like trying to do this whole thing where they like pick up your dog and keep it for a month, and it was like this whole complicated system. And I was like, well, how about we just go meet the person on the first session? And that like solved the problem. So when you're thinking about perks, when you build an offer, you want to think about these really simple solutions to their problem. Okay? Like, you don't have to go crazy with it, because crazy usually is not the answer. So again, on the calls that I did with these different businesses, and they had these different offers, there were so many crazy things where I'm like, that's inconvenient to me. That perk is inconvenient to me. It doesn't like help me or benefit me at all. It's like, they think it's valuable, but it just, it wasn't something that I needed, and it just took more time, effort, and energy. And then the third thing was, on some of the offers, there was no connection to the solution. Okay. And this applies to training so much. So if you make an offer to somebody that doesn't include the solution to the problem they're having. So like, let's say that somebody's having trouble with their little fluffy dog that's peeing all over the furniture, and they love their dog and they want it to be able to sleep on the furniture and run around. And then you're like, okay, well, let's do a 6-week training program. But you never once talk about like how that 6-week training program is connected to solving the problem that they're having. Or like, let's do a crate training program, right? They don't understand how that solves their problem. So really, during a selling process, and like when I say selling process, it's literally just a conversation that helps people understand. The important thing is they understand how to get to the solution that they want. So if you never present that to them, that is like the number one way to create a commodity offer where people are going to price shop and be cheap and flake and not show up, instead of an irresistible offer. You have to talk about the solution and sell them on that solution. Because if there was a solution, then there's really not a lot that's going to hold them back from committing. Like, buying new furniture is going to be a lot more expensive than training with you. And this is the number one thing that came up on those calls that I did. Because I didn't have a budget in mind. I knew the solution that I wanted. I knew that if there was new information out there and a system that I could pick through, that I wanted that. And when somebody comes to you for training and you immediately think, oh, they're just trying to get the best price, that's rarely the case. Rarely the case. Even if they ask you for price, it doesn't mean they're looking for the cheapest price. They just want the solution. So if you're not talking about the solution, then you're not going to get that sale. And so in these conversations, it wasn't talking about the solution. It was talking about the process for most of the time. And then at the end, where I just said, oh, this isn't the best fit for me, they assumed that it had to do with price. So then the conversation went into, okay, well, we can do a 2-pay, we can do, 4 payments, we can do weekly payments, or maybe the smaller program is a better place to start. But price wasn't the objection. They just assumed that price was the objection. Because even if that program was $1, I wouldn't have done it, because it doesn't serve the purpose for what I'm looking for, right? So if you feel like every time you try to close somebody or sign somebody up and there's an objection and you just drop price, I call it dropping your pants, right? You just drop price. That's the first thing that you do is, okay, well, we can do it for less, or we can do a lesser program. Make sure first that that's a real objection, right? Like, okay, well, if this was within your price range, is it something that you're 100% behind? And see what answer you get, because you'd be surprised. So when you create your irresistible offer, this is something that you're presenting to everybody that you talk about, or that you talk to, right, about training. The first thing is you have to offer that solution and paint the picture of what that solution looks like. This should be in your advertising, so your copy. This should be in your creative, so like your images, videos. This should be in your process of getting somebody scheduled, and it should be in your sign-up process. And then it should also be in your client systems. So whatever you're using to keep people engaged and involved, whatever systems you have in place, whether they get emails or posts or whatever that looks like, painting that picture of the solution needs to be built into that process. The next step is to add problem solver perks. So make sure, like we talked about, that the perks that you add make sense to the problems that your client has. And it's not about giving more time. It's not about giving more training sessions or more information. It's not just more or some weird solutions to problems that don't exist. It's just really simple solutions to the problems that your clients are having. So one thing that I think maybe I learned this from my sister, because she's a trainer, but somebody told me that instead of handing out homework or spending hours after training sessions sending emails or having to come up with custom videos for homework. I had a client who sent custom videos after every session. She simply gifted her clients a notepad that had her logo on it. And at the end of the session, she would sit down with them and she would make notes with them. And those notes made sense to the client because the client made the notes with the help of the trainer. And when she started doing that, the results that she got for her clients just like shot up. The retention, meaning people not falling off before the end of their training package, shot up, and the appreciation that the clients had for what she was doing increased as well. So something very simple like that is a problem solver perk. And then make sure that when you're talking to your clients through your marketing, through your messaging, through these conversations, that you speak to them as a dog owner and not as a trainer. This is something I talk about a lot. It's very easy to speak trainer, right? It's very easy to speak in a way where if you spoke to a trainer, they understand. But you'd probably be surprised how often your clients don't understand you and they just like nod their head. So really try to speak to their concerns, their fears, their excitement, their way of communicating to create that irresistible offer. Once you create your irresistible offer, sales will be easy, signups will be easy, marketing will be easy, because everything you put out there is going to speak to your potential client. But if you're still in that commodity phase inside your business and you're not sure how to change that, you're going to feel stuck. It doesn't matter how much marketing you do. It doesn't matter how many leads you bring in. It doesn't matter how many people you talk to. You're going to be stuck because you're just comparing yourself to the person next door. So if you want a simple outline of how to create your irresistible offer, everything that we talked about in this video today, just comment below. I'll give you the framework. And what you can do is you can just create your irresistible offer. It's one and done. It's ready to go. Just fill in the blanks and then you'll know exactly what to put in front of your clients. I hope you guys have an awesome week. Thanks for watching.